with the earthquake, and the fire did more damage than the earthquake.
Welcome to Dark Reckonings. Every catastrophe has a story. We uncover the truth behind the ruins. In this episode, we explore case number 1, the 1906 San Francisco earthquake.
You have seconds, maybe less.
What really happened, how it unfolded, the devastating toll, and the lessons carved into history. Let's open the file.
Earthquake which disrupted the entire state and killed 56 people.
At the dawn of the 20th century, San Francisco was the undisputed queen of the West Coast. It was a bustling metropolis of about 410,000 people, the financial and cultural heart of the American West. They called it the gateway to the Pacific. It was a city bursting with ambition and wealth, with grand hotels, opera houses, and stately mansions that all screamed permanence. A city built to last. But this vibrant city was built on a terrible secret, one buried deep within the earth. In less than a minute, that secret would erupt, not just shattering the city, but giving birth to a lie that would hold for 100 years.
In the San Fernando Valley, north of Los Angeles, a war veterans' hospital collapsed and many of the patients were killed.
The 1906 San Francisco earthquake is remembered as a great natural disaster. But what if the real catastrophe wasn't the earthquake, but a massive cover-up that buried thousands of the dead in a century-old lie? We're about to perform an autopsy on this historical disaster to uncover a truth that was deliberately hidden. A truth that city leaders fought to suppress for money, power, and pride. At 5:12 a.m. on Wednesday, April 18th, 1906, the city was just beginning to stir. A jarring foreshock gave residents about 20 to 25 seconds of warning before the main shock hit. Then, for 45 to 60 agonizing seconds, the ground convulsed with unimaginable violence. This was a magnitude 7.9 earthquake, a colossal release of energy from the San Andreas Fault, which ruptured for 296 miles.
The San Fernando Valley threatened to release 7,000 million gallons of water.
The shaking was felt from Oregon to Los Angeles and as far inland as Nevada. In San Francisco, the result was apocalyptic. Ornate brick and stone buildings simply disintegrated. The ground in areas built on landfill turned to liquid in a process we now call liquefaction. The 4-story Valencia Street Hotel actually sank into the liquefied soil, collapsing and killing dozens. On Market Street, the city's main artery, the pavement rolled in waves, tossing streetcars off their tracks, and the magnificent new City Hall, a building that took 25 years to build, was reduced to a skeletal ruin in an instant. The initial shock was devastating, but the real horror was just getting started. The earthquake had severed the city's gas lines and water mains, creating the perfect recipe for a firestorm.
The earthquake's believed to have been caused by the same crack in the Earth's crust.
Fires broke out almost immediately across the city. With the water mains broken, firefighters were basically helpless. The city's fire chief, Dennis Sullivan, had warned officials for years that their water system couldn't handle a major fire, but his warnings were ignored. In a tragic twist, Sullivan himself was mortally wounded in the quake, and the city he tried to protect was now at the mercy of the flames. Dozens of fires merged into monstrous conflagrations, devouring the city block by block. For the next 4 days, the fire raged uncontrollably. The blaze was so intense it created its own weather, with superheated winds that could incinerate a building in minutes. In a desperate and often counterproductive move, the military began dynamiting buildings to create fire breaks. But in many cases, untrained crews only managed to spread the embers and start new fires,
which led to the Great San Francisco earthquake of 1906.
In the end, over 80% of San Francisco was gone. Nearly 500 city blocks, holding 28,000 buildings, were destroyed. Over 225,000 people were suddenly homeless, forced into makeshift tent cities. It was in these smoldering ruins that the lie began. San Francisco's business and political leaders knew that a city known for catastrophic earthquakes was a bad investment, so they cooked up a new story. The damage, they claimed, wasn't from the act of God earthquake, but from the fires that followed. Since insurance policies at the time often covered fire but not earthquake damage, property owners had a financial reason to go along with it. The official story became, San Francisco has a fire problem, not an earthquake problem. And most importantly, they began to systematically downplay the number of people who had died. This was one of the biggest cover-ups in American history, driven by the desire to protect the city's reputation and its financial future. If you find this kind of historical deep dive compelling, take a moment to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation.
In 1906, they were just kids. The age when you don't remember too many.
In 1907, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors released the official death toll for the disaster, 478 people. For decades, that was the number you'd find in history books. But it was a grotesque fiction. The real number was a secret the city's elite wanted to keep buried along with the dead. The coroner, when asked for a count, reportedly took the 378 bodies in the morgue and just added 100 for believability. This fabricated number became the official record. Why such a blatant lie? Because a death toll in the thousands would have been catastrophic for business. It would have scared away investors, settlers, and the federal funds needed to rebuild. So they chose a number that sounded tragic but manageable, a number that didn't hint at the city's true vulnerability. The truth, however, remained hidden in plain sight, especially in the communities that were never counted. The city's poorest neighborhoods, like the area south of Market, were packed with immigrants and transient workers whose deaths were largely ignored. Nowhere was this erasure more profound than in Chinatown. The vibrant, densely populated neighborhood was completely destroyed by the fire, but in the racist climate of the era, hundreds, if not thousands, of Chinese victims were simply not counted, as if they never existed at all. For over 60 years, the official lie held firm. It wasn't until the 1960s that a city librarian and archivist named Gladys Hansen began to question the number. She started what would become her life's work, an autopsy of the historical record. For 40 years, she combed through letters, newspaper clippings, and family histories, compiling a list of the forgotten. Her work, detailed in her book Denial of Disaster, proved the city's leaders had knowingly covered up the true scale of the tragedy. Thanks to Hansen's tireless efforts, we now know the truth. The real death toll wasn't 478. It was over 3,000, and possibly even higher. In 2005, nearly a century after the disaster, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors finally passed a resolution officially acknowledging the 3,000-plus figure, giving Hansen the vindication she deserved and righting a century-old wrong. While the story of the death toll is one of deception, the 1906 earthquake also has a surprising, more positive legacy. It was the event that single-handedly gave birth to modern earthquake science in America. Before 1906, the study of earthquakes was a tiny field, and officials often suppressed research, fearing it would be bad for business. But a disaster this big, you just couldn't ignore it. The governor appointed a state earthquake investigation commission, led by geologist Professor Andrew Lawson. This commission produced the groundbreaking Lawson Report, which mapped the entire 296-mile rupture of the San Andreas Fault and documented its effects in incredible detail. A member of that commission, Professor H.F. Reed, made a revolutionary discovery. By studying how the ground had deformed, he developed the theory of elastic rebound. He figured out that strain slowly builds up along a fault line as tectonic plates move. When that strain becomes too great, the fault ruptures, and the ground violently snaps back, releasing decades of stored energy as seismic waves. This theory is still the fundamental principle of earthquake science today. The 1906 earthquake, in all its devastation, provided the raw data that unlocked the secrets of how our planet works. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake was a disaster on two fronts. First, it was a cataclysm of nature that leveled a great American city. Over 80% of the city was destroyed, not just by the quake, but by the fires that followed. But second, it was a man-made disaster of lies and suppression. Over 3,000 people died, their memories erased for a century to serve greed and civic pride. The story of 1906 is a dual legacy. It's the story of the birth of modern seismology, the moment we started to truly understand the ground beneath our feet. But it's also a cautionary tale about how easily truth can be buried. The autopsy of this event, performed by historians like Gladys Hansen, revealed that the most dangerous fault line isn't always in the earth, but can sometimes run through the human heart's capacity for denial. San Francisco rebuilt, stronger and more resilient, but its recovery was built on a foundation of forgotten souls. And that is the disaster we should never forget. Case number 1 ends here. Some reckonings echo through time. Thank you for joining us as we dive into the dark chapters of history on Dark Reckonings. If this gripped you, please like and subscribe so we can bring more stories like this. Tell us in the comments, what darkness should we uncover next? Until then, stay away.